Hello, everyone. I'm Maddox Brown with New England MMA News, and I'm here with Matt Denning. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time.
No problem. Thank you for coming on the show. Since you're new to the show, we're gonna start with how you got into the sport of MMA. How did you get into the sport?
Um, January of 2013, my mother passed away from uh lung cancer, and I was just always told I wasn't allowed to fight because my mom didn't really like me fighting. And when she passed away, she really couldn't tell me no anymore, and that's what led me to walking into the doors of Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to go to a place where I could let out some aggression and try to see if I was any good at this mixed martial arts stuff.
I'm sorry for that loss. Yeah. Um, how did you find your current gym?
Um, to be honest, I just like dabble a lot on Facebook Marketplace. I quit my job a couple of years ago, and I was basically detailing cars in my driveway and flipping vehicles off Marketplace and this, that, and the other thing off Marketplace. And while I was going through a divorce, I was looking in this area for cleaner vehicles, stuff with less rust than what we have up in Maine. And I came across a really affordable home that needed some work, and that's what I'm living in now. And after this fight, I plan on doing the whole remodel, videoing everything start to finish and showing because I've been over the last 9 months accumulating all the stuff I'm use all my metal roofing I got off Marketplace, all the stuff from my vanities and my appliances and everything inside my house. I got all of it off Marketplace. And I have like a $25,000 budget and I don't want to spend most of that on a heating system or appliances or anything. So I had to keep all that stuff cheap. So Marketplace was what led me there. And I landed in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And if you know Phil Rowe, Philly
Mhm.
Fresh, his I believe it's his wife or girlfriend. She's from this area. He trained here a couple times, and I saw that the gym was local. Um, I don't plan on being here longer than a year from now. I plan on living in my camper and traveling around this great country. But for right now, it's helped me recover from breaking my femur, and it's a solid kickboxing gym. Bunch of young guys in here, great wrestlers, and the training is exactly what I need to fight a guy like Nate Grimard.
Speaking of Nate Grimard, we're gonna get into your upcoming fight. You're fighting Nathaniel Grimard at NEF 60. What do you know about Nathaniel, and how do you see this fight going for you?
I actually know a lot about Nathaniel. Bill Jones, a guy that I fought in the past, he actually sponsored me by getting me some free training over at Nostos with Devin Powell. Um, Devin's got a phenomenal gym. I've I went into his he invited a bunch of guys from Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu down when he first opened, and we all took the trip down to New Hampshire, trained with him, and then I ended up fighting Bill Jones later on. And Bill Bill's a awesome fighter, even better guy outside of the cage. He hooked me up in like one of the roughest times of my life. I was driving an hour and 40 minutes to training. It it was I was trying to still fight even though I didn't have an active camp and the same training partners I did back at Central Maine Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. But they Nostos is a legit school, and I know Nathaniel's had a rough go with some of his losses that were winnable fights, and he reminds me a lot of me at that age. But the difference is he has that school and he has Devin and his teammates, and I really think the right fights could turn his career around and put him back in the positive direction of what he was looking to do. He's already fought for PFL. Um, he's been showcasing more of his uh his style of fighting in his last few fights. He's had better luck with opponent draws than he did in the past. Um, that's why I like the fight. We're good buddies. I don't even care if he doesn't even want to think about shooting a takedown. I'm ready to go out there and we can kickbox for 3 5-minute rounds and see how it goes. I'm coming off of breaking my femur, and I was in the best shape of my life before that. I fought Carl Langston at 145 pounds, and I was doing really well at keeping my weight low, walking around at 160 pounds, and boom, get whacked by a car, break your femur, and it's easy to gain weight when you're laid up in bed. So I feel good about not gaining too much weight and using this camp wisely to get back in shape, keep this leg stretched and healing. And I think Nate's the perfect opponent because I think we fare the same in the stand up aspect. We're not bad strikers by any means, but we're predominantly grapplers. He's a wrestler. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I wouldn't mind just seeing who's got the better hands and feet that night and throw some bombs at each other. I think in the past I've had a lot of fights where I've given up on myself or I just gassed and tanked, like blew my load early and had nothing left to give. And that's definitely not something that's going to happen this fight. It's November. I've had all year I broke my leg in October of last year. I started training on it again in February. It was a short amount of time after the break that I started getting back to work. And uh, I think I'm in enough shape. The legs of the least of my worries. I train very hard to keep my gas tank full and to have the cardio I need to fight a young grappler wrestler like Nate Grimard.
What do you think will be your keys to victory in this fight?
Um, the dictating the pace of where the fight goes. I gotta stop his takedown. We all know he's a good wrestler, and I gotta mentally stay in the game. There's times where I lose focus and I'll do some jiu-jitsu right here. I showed that against Vasta. I dominated the first 40 seconds of that fight, hit him with an overhand right, put him on his back, and it was like, oh, I'll heel hook him real quick. And that didn't work. Obviously, I missed the heel hook. He defended it and TKO'd me. So it's gonna be smart. Use my experience. I've had a lot of fights. This is his, I think, 11th pro fight. Quite a bit. He's been a very active fighter. I've watched his career. Um, I just gotta avoid the takedown from him and stay in the pocket. He's a longer guy than me, so I think the reach will play some. But I know how to fight. I've been doing this a long time. This is my 10th year as a professional, and I'm learning that I'm on my way out, and it is time to get close to that retirement point and start coaching. And I look forward to. There's a few guys on the list from New England that I still want to fight before I hang it up, and they know who they are. They keep ducking it, but Nate was Nate wasn't on that list. Um, I think I was on Nate's list. Nate wasn't on mine. Great guy, but I'm a fighter. He's an athlete, and I think I'm gonna have to show him the difference. It's just how it is. Some of us are brawlers, some of us are good athletes, and he doesn't want to make this a street fight because he won't win that one.
Who are going to be some of your key training partners for this camp?
So I'm bringing up with me Jordan Varney from Ravenswood, West Virginia. He's fighting Jake Ferry for the 125-pound amateur title. This is only this kid's third fight, and he's he's long. I think he's like 5'9", a strong 5'8 3/4, but it says he's 5'9", you know what I mean? But he's a lanky kid, really lean though. Like he's making 125. He's fought at 145 his other two fights, and he's never weighed over 140 pounds. He walks around at like 136 to 138 pounds, I think. Even less than that with now that we've been training a lot. So I think 125 is a good draw for him, but he's fighting a stud. He's fighting one of the best fighters I've seen in the 125-pound division in a long time. And he's a great training partner for me because he's a southpaw, he's long, he's got great wrestling. I got Parkersburg, the south side Parkersburg School, and then PHS, the Parkersburg High School. They're 15-year-old wrestlers in those high schools are are better than most of the wrestlers I've ever seen in New England. New England doesn't put out great wrestlers like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Western New York, Virginia, West Virginia, even the Carolinas. There's a lot of stud wrestlers in Mid Ohio Valley. And that's why I was like, oh, Nathaniel Grimard, yeah, he's just a good wrestler. I've I've been training with great wrestlers since I've got here. Um, I got a bunch of kickboxers in the age range from 15 to 45 in this gym. So I get different looks every day. Mike Brown, I'll give a huge shout out to him. Uh, he's a local title holder boxer, stout guy. I think he fights at 185. That's my main boxing partner. Like that's who I get as much boxing in with as I can because he's got that good of boxing skills and he's bigger than me. And then there's a couple smaller guys. Justin Milam, he fights at like 147. He's a good kickboxer to have in the gym, preparing for fights like this because he's leaner, he's faster. Um, but I got dozens of young kids between the age of 16 and 25 that like to kickbox. They come in here, they train every day. Um, can't even remember half their names, but they're they keep me they keep my cardio in check for sure because I rotate out a fresh guy every round and I try to do 12 rounds of sparring sessions. So, uh, uh 12 12 3-minute rounds doesn't really it's not really equivalent to the same 5-minute round that you have. So I still have to throw in a whole day of the week. It's usually on Saturdays, but we're doing it tomorrow. I the whole day I spend training 5-minute rounds because I'm the only pro guy in the gym for MMA, and they're not used to 5-minute rounds. So my two jujitsu classes a week where I train with the jujitsu guys here, I'll give a shout out to them, Switchback BJJ. They have some great jujitsu guys here. That's the good thing about this gym is they have Mike Shepard, who runs the kickboxing program here. Mike Shepard is a stud kickboxer. If you want to go Google a guy and watch a bunch of badass kickboxing matches, Mike Shepard's a guy to go watch. And then I believe it's his cousin runs the jiu-jitsu program here. And he's in the military, real stout, jacked black belt in jiu-jitsu. Um, he runs a good jiu-jitsu program here. So I have the looks for the BJJ and the kickboxing. And because of my experience, they're nice enough to let me run my own MMA classes. I run classes 3 days a week over here. And it's it's been a change of pace for not being in a real camp in a school since I left Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and was doing my own thing. It's nice to have a bunch of people to be able to teach and craft and see what they're good at, what they're not good at. I do like this place. It's what kept me here. I probably wouldn't have stayed in West Virginia this long if it wasn't for this gym. I would have flipped this house, made my money and left. But the gyms, it keeps me focused. I got a job here now. I got training every day. It gives me some schedule, and hopefully it gets me 4 or 5 professional boxing matches where I can be in the win column and go out on top from being a professional boxer. That's what got me into MMA. I started boxing real young. I've only been able to box one time as a professional against Cam Arnold. Um, and there was no way I was winning that fight. I was coming off the couch and he he's a stud himself, real fast, good boxer. I love watching Cam box. I can't wait to see him. I hope one day he turns the corner and does a few pro boxing matches just to get him out of the way and goes back to MMA.
Do you have one final message to Nathaniel Gramara before you guys get locked in the cage together?
Stay strong and healthy. That's the only thing I care about right now is just making sure we can both show up and no injuries. Train your best. I'm training my best, and this is an action-packed card for New England fights. And I hope me and Nate get to put on a banger. And I really would like a 3-round slugfest and see how it goes, and put our grappling aside, and we'll see who the better striker is that night because we both know the jiu-jitsu wrestling game. People don't want to watch that. People want to watch us punch and kick each other in the head.
So now we're gonna get into my last couple questions. Who is your biggest role model if you have one in the sport of MMA?
Well, as I hit off my bowl, the Diaz brothers since day one, since watching them when I remember watching Kimbo Slice and Jorge Masvidal and young Nate Diaz with the backyard fights and the gym fights, and for for professional mixed martial artists, it was always the Diaz brothers. I loved watching Nick before the UFC, and just he was a thug. He didn't care. He wanted to fight people, and that's all it was. Just I'm a better fighter than you, and I love that. But I also had the luxury of we had Marcus Davis, Tim Boach, even Devin Powell. Devin Powell was another guy while we were all amateurs and early days of our pro careers. He was he was stepping in contender series, uh, brutal fights, even just in New England. I've fought some of the best guys that I've looked up to. I looked up to John Lemke a whole bunch before I fought him, and the once you're in those rooms with those guys doing the same thing that they're doing, it really makes you realize that when you were just in the gym or even in your buddy's basement training and you weren't doing anything differently than what they were doing. A lot of those guys started the same way. They were training at their buddy's house in a garage or train. We we all started like we had the luxury of having Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which was an established school that for jiu-jitsu, nice location, mats, everything, the stuff that you need to train. And there's other places at the time before I think Recon is the name now, but back when it was Marcus Davis's gym, Team Irish. Um there we were training with John Rayo in one of his buddies' basements for a while, and we'd meet up on Friday nights and have big sparring sessions from all the guys from Shays and guys from Rayo's gym before it was Rayo's gym. And it the growth of this sport for me over the past 10 years, I got to slide in with some of my idols, some of the guys I looked up to a lot, and we were all just looking to do the same thing. We were looking to put on some big shows, um, have some good events. Matt Peterson and Nick have always been looking out just to give the fans a good time, give the fighters the fights that they want, because we were just a bunch of guys that couldn't fight. We weren't allowed to fight. And we always got looked at for being weirdos, putting on Everlast MMA gloves in someone's backyard and punch each other in the face, and the cops would show up, and that's illegal. And we're like, nah, we're just buddies beating each other up, like staying in good shape, leave us alone. But we wouldn't have had that if we didn't have the luxury of turning on the TV on Saturday night and watch the Irish hand grenade drill some guy on Spike TV. It it was cool to point at the TV and be like, "Oh, that guy's from Maine. That guy's from Maine." That's half the reason I'm still here. Like I'm in West Virginia now. I'm I think I'm bigger in the Harley stunt riding scene than I ever will be in mixed martial arts. But in New England, people know who Matt Denning is from fighting, and I I fought everyone. I fought 4 weeks in a row one time. People remember that stuff, and I want some kid that's coming up that might have it rougher than others and be like, "Nah, I can still do this." There's opportunity out there for me to just to go out there and showcase that I like to I like to grapple, or I like taekwondo, or whatever their thing is, that their niche that gets them into mixed martial arts in general. There's a bazillion people in this world that feel very misunderstood. It's very quiet in a gym when everyone's training and everyone's rolling, and all you hear is gloves hitting a bag or mitts or someone else, and you hear someone choking in the corner from being. We get it. We all know what it's like to not know where our place is, and that's exactly where our place is in life. It's in those rooms training for a couple hours a day, and it makes us the real different outsider compared. Like we're not throwing footballs and playing baseball. Like we're joking each other and punching each other in the head on a daily basis because we looked up to some guy that also liked punching someone in the face every day. I still keep in contact with Marcus to this day. He's not that far away in North Carolina, and I always like to, if I'm traveling, be able to stop in and say hi, get some rolls in, hit some mitts, get punched by him a little bit if I'm in the area. It's you can't just become a world famous singer overnight. You just might not have it. You know what I mean? You just might not be able to sing. Even if you don't know how to fight, if you put in the time and you really show up, and you can become something great just by practicing and sharpening your skills. It's way different than anything else. It's a what's Cam posted a thing this morning even. You're born with it. No one can take it away from you. You either have it or you don't. Some of us want to fight, and when we get punched in the face, we smile a little bit and say we get to punch back.
Do you have any special shout outs to sponsors, supporters, and teammates before I let you go?
Yeah, I'd like to give a huge shout out just to start off with New England Fights in general. Nick, DeSavo, Matt Peterson, epic card. I just want to talk about the card for a quick second. The card on its own is phenomenal with who they've met. You get with just me and Nate, a big guy from Nostos, a local longtime guy from Maine that moved away. Story writes itself. You got Bruce Boyington, who's been in the sport longer than me. Bruce was another guy that you watched that him versus Keegan Hornstra, and he wheel kicks him in the head twice and knocks him out. That made you want to at least go for a quick little run and like see if you can. That was an incredible fight, but they did a really good job with this fight card. There's a lot of guys that I've fought and beat. There's a lot of guys on there that I've fought and lost to, and that's one thing I like seeing, the guy, like we've all kept going. Um, so awesome fight card. I'm super stoked to be on that. Uh, Big shout out to Cugno Boxing. They've always held it down for me when I needed a place to train. Cam Arnold, Brandon Berry, great training partners over there. I can't wait to be on the same card as Cam. It's been a long time. Um, Big shout out to the Academy Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. When I got into my accident J Jack got into an accident, a vehicle accident right after, and he's been in recovery the same time I'm going through recovery with this. And he's a bad dude. He's always had an open door policy. You go in there, you want to train. I've had some of the best roles and sparring matches in my time underneath his roof. It was the first gym I ever went to in Maine. So it started a long career for me. Love J Jack. Huge shout out to him. Shout out to everyone at Parker's the Doghouse, Parkersburg, West Virginia. Um, all the guys at Switchback BJJ. Where iron sharpens iron. We're here 6 days a week. Some crazy guys like me are here seven. That's just because that I need to do it. If I don't do it, I go nuts. Um, I got my homie Ice, all the guys over at the Higher Calling Motorcycle Club, all the guys the Outlaw Motorcycle Club, all the guys from the Losers MC. Um, the motorcycle club held me down after I broke my leg, so big shout out to those guys. Um, anyone that's training to fight, huge shout out to you. Keep the sport alive. We live in a society that's trying to very much feminize every man that especially it's toxic if we have any type of mixed martial arts skills or know how to box or we know some self-defense, we own a firearm, we're the crazy ones. Keep holding it down. Boxing's been going on forever and MMA is just a replacement to boxing. Even if that's your bag, you just like to go box. Cool. I love it. I like watching some people throw down. Um, I never wanted to really get old, and that's the point where I'm coming to. I probably got 3, 4 more MMA fights left in me. I don't think I'm gonna fight after 35. I think this is next year's my last year, and I'm gonna be going to train to becoming a teacher after that. And I just want to travel and do my own thing. So huge shout out to all the guys that are coming up. Even the young guys like you that are doing holding down the fort for keeping the fans intrigued, up to date, and inspired to pick up a mic or a glove and at least get their voice heard. Because a lot of us, the only way we get heard is if we knock somebody out, and we get that 35 seconds of interview time to say, "Hey, get your shit together. You're only here one time," and it's a very short time looking back at I got 10 years of mixed martial arts behind me, and it seems like just yesterday I made my professional debut. So, huge shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you doing this. This is awesome.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, man, anytime. I got if you want to link up with some of the kids I got down here, we got a couple other MMA guys that fight in Kentucky and stuff. They're all amateurs. Some of them might be going pro. So if you gotta talk to some guys from over here, almost forgot about this. Huge shout out to Josh Harvey. Him and I fought together in the past. Me and Jordan are actually heading over to train with him in Ashburn at American Top Team in Ashburn, Virginia. 5 hour drive. It's well worth it to get some good looks in. They got a seminar there on the 19th of October, so we're gonna go over there and get some training in. Me and Josh fought in the past. That kid's a stud, phenomenal wrestler. Also on this card. Can't wait to share a card. Like I said, there's guys that I've beat. Fought Brian Costco, who's fighting on this card, and I fought Josh Harvey, who subbed me in this lesser time, I think, than it took me to sub Costco. So it's weird how the world goes full circle, but it's going to be. I think this card in Bangor is really going to be a good icing on the cake for 2024.
I'll see you in November, bro.
Man, I'm excited. Can't wait.